Um, my name is Jasper Sonnevelt. I am a Agile consultant, coach, and I live in the Netherlands. I help teams and I help organizations implement Agile ways of working, lean ways of working. And to be honest, I don't really care which methodology we do, as long as it works. So you can find me on Twitter and send me feedback on Twitter, or send it in my email. That's okay as well. Please let me know. I'm interested in your feedback. So I think we did this a couple of times, but raise your hand. Who uses some form of Agile method? All right, good. I should have asked who doesn't. So, and here's the question I want to talk about. Do you still remember why you started using it? So I assume a lot of you started using it for longer than half a year ago or a year ago, because Scrum is getting, I'm saying Scrum is getting old. This is where I get into an argument with people that are older than me. I'm comfortable saying Scrum is getting old and Kanban is maturing. So a lot of people are, especially in the Netherlands, but I think in Poland as well, are working with an Agile methodology, and they adopted it at some point for some reason. And the reason is, in this case, Kanban, because I like talking about Kanban. Just like the other speakers before me, some pattern I noticed is that everybody says, I'm fine with every other methodology, I just like Kanban better. So that's for me the same. I implement whatever they ask me to implement, and I think we can discuss everything, but I usually end up doing Kanban. There's probably some bias there somewhere. So the reason I get when I ask people, it's basically, why am I here? Why did you invite me? Why did you get me over? Why did you ask me a question? And they'll say something like, well, we want to do Kanban because it helps us reduce multitasking, which is that's a good reason for me. We would like to see how we are spending our time, or we would like to show people how we are spending our time, which is a fine reason. Or we want to improve Scrum because we have a lot of ad hoc work, and the way we implemented Scrum, we did it in a way that the book told us, and it didn't tell us how to deal with ad hoc work. So we think Kanban will be very helpful for that, and will support us in dealing with the work and keeping our customer happy. So usually when teams start, the energy goes up instantly, and people are very motivated and driven to find improvements, to find ways to change the system. Because I think that if you ask people, what can we change, no matter where you are, what you do, or what you have adopted, they will find something, and they say, well, if we change this, we'll be happier. So especially in the beginning, you change the scenery, you change the way you're working, and there will be a lot of improvements, and there will also be a lot of conversation. Conversation and feedback. Everything we did will be challenged. Just because there's something new, we're learning something, we have something we haven't seen before, we haven't done before. We know of other people that did it, and they were excited, so let's try it and let's share. So my question to you is, how did you pick your Agile flavor? What was your reason for adopting Kanban, or your reason to adopt Scrum, or to do Lean or XP? Think about it. Please find me. If you have, I'll be here walking around in the open space. If you have useful comments or stuff I can learn, please share it with me. But I think that usually the reason why we pick any new way of working is because we heard about it and people were successful at it, which is a good reason to get introduced to it. I don't think it's a good reason to adopt it. So every now and then I read a book and I find something new. And the last book I read before submitting this talk was Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And like Andrea yesterday said, all models are wrong, just some are useful. So don't shoot me over the basis of this model. I use it because it works for me. Just throw it out if it doesn't work for you. But this is what he is saying. He says, well, all successful leaders, teams, and organizations act, think, and communicate in the exact same way. And it's completely opposite from what the rest is doing. And he calls this the golden circle. And he said, well, on the outside of the golden circle is the what. And the what is the product or the solution for a problem of some sort. In the middle circle, there's the process or the USP, the thing that differentiates you from the other people, the other guys. By the way, this is a book strongly focused on product marketing. So I need to make some shortcuts to make it work for Kanban, but that's okay. It fits in the model. And the last circle says, well, what's your purpose? What's your motivation? What's your dream? Andrea talked about dream yesterday. And you need some sort of motivation or purpose or dream when you're adopting a methodology or when you're adopting a way of working. And usually the dream is pretty much okay in the beginning. And this expands. So if you get your purpose right, if you get your why, then your how can follow from that. And then eventually you'll find different solutions. And usually I put agile processes in the how. So, and I especially put Kanban there just because it works. And Kanban lets you pick whatever you want to do and works for you best. So that's one of the reasons I favor Kanban. So let's imagine a team of developers and put them through this whole exercise. So they will come up to me and say, well, why do you want to do Kanban? They say, well, we want to reduce our stress, we want to have a happy customer, and we want to be transparent about the work we do, which is a good reason for me to adopt anything. So, all right. So how can we do that? They say, well, we think we can do this by getting a grip on our ad hoc work, by involving our customer in the process we're following and the stuff we're doing, and by making tiny changes in our process to improve a little bit every time. And if it doesn't work, then we could just throw it out and put in something new. So basically for me, that's well, then Kanban would be a good fit for you. So with that in mind, what are the practices we would select, we would use? Well, we put up a board, we visualize whatever we're doing. We'll arrange for stand-ups and retrospectives to improve what we're doing. And every now and then, because this is very specific for our team, we'll work at our client's office because they're unable to join us, but we'll go over to them and just sit at their desk, ask them questions. And we read a book on multitasking and saw a PowerPoint slide on it, so let's not do too much at the same time. That sounds like a good principle, good practice in Kanban. Let's limit our whip. This is very specific for a team. It might work on a lot of teams, but it is very much context driven. So just copying it because other people do it, these things might not work for you. They might not be the thing that will get you there. Scrum, for instance, working in 2-week sprint just doesn't work for every team. You can try to make it work, and you might succeed, but the majority of teams just can't make it work. It feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good, and it's not the good. There's a sort of nice uncomfortable where you're struggling a little bit, like putting on a new sweater or something like that. It doesn't fit right, but you know it will look good. It's not that kind of uncomfortable. So you're looking good for a while, and it still feels like it's you put it on backwards. Then it doesn't work. No matter how many people were successful doing it, it just doesn't work for you. Change it. You have a different context. So this is one of the reasons, and we've heard a lot about this today and yesterday as well. This is one of the reasons why there's no sense in copying a work process or copying a methodology just because other people do it. It's plain stupid. So I might have just offended a couple people, but I don't mind. Shoot me in my email, please. So following this process will make sure that a team makes very specific decisions, and it will have big implications for instance, their board design. I have the hipster board as well, just because it's useful. But this team said, well, let's add an intake column. Let's visualize a moment where we have a connection with our customer and call them or go to them and say, well, we are ready to start your work. Is this what you mean? Is this what you think is most urgent right now? Is this still valid? Or did your world change so much in 2.5 weeks ago, since 2.5 weeks ago, that we don't have to do it anymore? So that's a design decision that a team will make based on the goals of implementing any methodology, in this case Kanban. It also might result in extra swim lanes to manage risks, to make a clear dividing line between work that is very urgent and work that is important but not that urgent. And it also has implications for a lot of other things. It will drastically affect your policies, how you work together, what you measure. It will affect the location where you work. So it might mean that you have to move every Tuesday to your client's office. So look at this one from the other side. What if I told you all that I invented a new method? Let's call it banana, because bananas are wonderfully difficult things I learned yesterday from Torbjörn. That it will only work if you spend your Tuesdays at your client's office. That would be an interesting exercise to see how many people would actually do that. So, question to ask yourself, if you follow up on the previous question, why did you start? Is, did you go inside out? So did you start by saying, why do we do it, and start with the dream? Or did you start with implementing Kanban and then figure out a reason to do it later, just to justify it? So the reason I like Kanban is because Kanban inherently has this question in it. It says start with what you do now and then agree to pursue incremental evolutionary change. So you take your starting point as it is, and then you will change whatever you want to change to get to your goal. And the thing I like, it doesn't prescribe anything you need to. There's no goal you're working towards other than what you set yourself, which is and improve towards it. So that's why I like Kanban. So let's forward a year. So the team set up their board. They wrote down all of their policies, and they keep working. And then at some point, a manager will walk in and say, well, maybe not a manager, just somebody with a tie. We'll walk in and say, well, what we're doing, the results are good, but the effort it takes goes down. So we're getting better at it, which is good for me. But he says, well, I'm scared because the results are stable, and if the effort is going down, there will be a certain point where the effort is just not enough to keep the results, and customers will start complaining. I'm like, okay. And he said, there's another thing. We have stuff in the system, and stuff, I mean processes, policies, columns on the board, WIP limits at certain places that absolutely make no sense whatsoever. I don't know why we have them. This is a big signal. So you'll see that a team that works together for a longer time will still have a lot of conversation usually, and they give a lot of feedback, sometimes even more direct than they used to in the beginning because they know each other. But the energy is stable, so there's not the whole yay, let's go energy anymore. which can be expected. But there are also not that many improvements anymore. Small changes are getting harder and harder and harder to find. So the thing they say is, well, we kind of need a big change. But we don't want to do a big change because the environment is just out of our reach. And they say, but well, you know what? Don't worry about it. We're still doing fine. And we're still doing fine is a big warning sign. So you could ask them. So while just re-ask them the question, and that's why I do. So I haven't seen you guys for a year. I haven't seen you guys for half a year. Can you tell me why do you use Kanban? And they'll be like, well, we can tell you we use it because we want to get a grip on our ad hoc work, and we want to involve our customer, and we want to make small changes in our system. I'm like, okay, it sounds like something you said a year ago, so that might work. So what happened is that the dream has become the reason for, the Kanban has become the dream instead of the means to the end. And what this does is that the wide range of options you used to have just got much smaller because you just shrunk your triangle. You're arguing from the wrong starting point because there's a big risk that Kanban just doesn't work for you anymore, and that whatever you used to do is changed because the world changed. So there's a big chance that whatever you do doesn't apply anymore. So instead of having the whole triangle of options you can pick from, you only have a little bit of small area, and it will keep you going in circles. The problem is you don't see it if you're in the team. If you're part of the system, you get stuck in it, and you won't see what it is you need to change to get out of that loop. So what I try to do, being a consultant and going back and forth between clients and meeting them for a short time, is to find a way to design this into a system. So this is the risky part, because I know people will start disagreeing with me from here on. I'm not a developer, but I do have a strong preference of designing systems that will cause people to do stuff, to automate it. So I just tried a couple of things. I failed at most, by the way. So, but I want to share with you some of the things I tried to get this question of why are we doing it back into the system without me having to come back every time and ask them the question. So with some of the Kanban teams I work with, we still use the 3 questions. So what did you do today? What did you do yesterday? What will you do today? And are there any things in your way? This has a big problem in it, because as long as they keep saying nope, nothing's wrong, it might just take a little longer, or I just got disrupted. Somebody called. I wanted to be. I didn't want to be harsh to them, so I picked up the phone and I thought I'd help them for just a little bit. So I'm still spending the same amount of time on this work. It's just a little. It'll just take a little longer. You will keep going. You will keep going in circles, and you can keep going in circles. And because I'm not a developer and I do coach developers, they will mess with me, because every time I ask them, well, what's keeping you, and they say, well, it's harder than we thought. It's more difficult than we thought. And one more question from me will cause them to go into in depth, explain the code to me, and then I'm like, gone. So I added a 4th risky question that basically said, when will it be ready? And this works in the short term a little bit, just because it keeps them on their toes. And if you write it down, if you actually write this down somewhere and say, well, is it ready on Thursday? And they'll be like, no, won't be ready on Thursday. I said, well, will it be ready on Friday? No, it won't be ready on Friday. So, well, will it be ready next Friday? Oh, next Friday it will be long gone in history. So I'm like, okay, so let's move backwards. So I'm like, Thursday. No, I'm done. All right. Wednesday. Might be Wednesday. And on Wednesday I'm like, good. So Wednesday it's probably done. That's where you get uncertain. That's the amount of uncertainty I can deal with. So you write it down, and it gets some extra attention to the deadline, because I'll write it on the board somewhere, and it gets some extra attention. So I try to figure out how to measure this. There's actually no good way of measuring methods like this. So this is the one I picked. There's a lot of external motivation, because I need to keep asking them, or somebody outside of their team needs to keep asking them. So it works on the short term, but it's not sustainable, because if they don't make it, they'll just stretch it, and at some point they will get tired of me or somebody else asking when will it be done, and they will be very vocal about it, I've learned. So a different way of approaching this that I tried much earlier, before I even was actually working with this, is that in the previous organization I worked with, there was an Agile introduction, adoption, transformation, and there was a Lean transformation, and those two clashed. So it shouldn't, but it did. And what happened was that every team had two boards. And one board had the work on it, and the other board had the improvements on it. And extending the stand-up a little bit to a point where the people always would do the board, discuss the work, and then move over to the improvements, kind of gets it into the system. And it kind of gets people focused on, all right, so this is what I came across today, and I think we can change it. And this is what I will do, and I will run with it, and then I'll see what happens, and I will see if we can fix it. So the small changes, it will keep it in, except the problem here is that there's not much external motivation, so which is good for me, from my point of view. The short-term results are pretty good, and it is sustainable, except it doesn't challenge the system. So it doesn't challenge the whole board, the way of working, because it's part of it. Again, so another way I tried it, and I haven't really got the results back on this one yet. I just made a guess. Put like a value statement or a dream above the board. Say, this is why we work the way we work. At least then, if you look at it every time, it either becomes a habit and you'll fail anyway, or at some point, a new member joins the team and says, that doesn't make any sense. Or somebody in the team says, well, that doesn't make any sense. So there's not much external motivation. There are some short-term results, especially if you write it down, because you pay attention to it, and there will be a question, well, if this is what we want to do, if this is our purpose, if this is our why, is it still applicable to the way we're working? And it's definitely sustainable, because you can just go over and over and over and over and over and keep doing it. And yesterday I was in the open space talking to some guys here, and they suggested another one, and I will try that when I get home. There's policies with a time limit on it, which I think is a very good idea. Basically what it means is that you, every policy you have, you say, well, we'll try this for a couple of weeks. And then after a couple of weeks, we stop using it. So we can actually see what happens if we don't use it anymore. If we don't need it anymore, then we're done. Then it's gone anyway. If it turns out that it added something valuable, we can just reinstate it and put it back in, put a new time limit on it, and start using it again. And the more I talk about this with people, the more I become convinced that it is good to have an external motivation. To just have somebody from outside the system just come in. And you can do this with coaches or consultants like me, but that's not, it doesn't work anymore at some point, besides the fact that it might be very expensive. But it works with people from other teams. So they need to be well outside of this team and preferably outside the area where the decision is made by the team to work in an agile fashion. And then just come by every now and then or at random times, just ask questions. What's this for? Why do you use this? Why did you put up this column? Why did you instate this policy? I don't get it. And if the team cannot explain it, you can just throw it out. Then apparently there's no use for it anymore. So my question to you is, if you have good ideas about this, because I'm struggling with it and I'm very eager to learn, just any idea will do. Let me know in the open space, or put it up on Twitter, or put it up on my email. I'll summarize it and then put them in the presentation, and then I'll put the presentation up on SlideShare. So what I hope I did a little bit today is give you some ways to challenge the way you work and the way you implement your agile methods, and also to help you get out of the circle you might be running around in, implementing new stuff on a system that actually doesn't do for you what you wanted to do in the first place. Thank you.